Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, and all of you potential Toastmasters out there watching us today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ken Richardson. I am the District 115 Club Growth Director. And with me today is my co-host, distinguished Toastmaster, past District Governor, Phyllis Tribby. Good morning, Phyllis.
Good morning, Ken, and good morning to all of our public out there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How you doing today, Ken?
Doing great. Pardon me, I was, looks like we're, hold on a second.
Busy with Facebook, we understand.
What happened with my other?
There you go.
Let's see what's happening. There we go, that's better. Doing multiple computers, two computers at a time is a challenge, but I'm learning how to better multitask. So in any case, today's a day for us to continue with the discussion we started on Tuesday about how to build your Toastmasters team. And at that meeting, we talked about different things that the executive committee and other team members might do to build that team. And today we're going to talk about resolving conflict. I am conflict averse. Don't really like conflict, but it's almost inevitable. So we'll talk about it and we'll look at some tools that might be helpful to resolve conflict. And we were talking about effective communication the other day. And certainly you got to have effective communication in order to get the ball rolling. And just like effective communication, there are lots of different models out there that allegedly tell you how to resolve conflict. So there are a number of very good ones, but I picked one today that I wanted to use that's relatively simple, easy to understand, doesn't go into a lot of detailed theory, but does, I think, answer some questions. So I'm going to share my screen, of course. I feel like on those days we don't have guests. This is our other classroom. We're on Classroom Wake Up with Toastmasters. So team building skills is what we are focusing on over these next several sessions. And today we're going to talk about resolving conflict. So one question we might ask ourselves is, why do conflicts arise in the first place? Where do they come from? Well, we all have differing needs. So that's a potential source of conflict, as is different perspectives. We look at things a little bit differently depending on our history, our background, our own experiences. And those differing perspectives can at times lead to conflict. We may have very strongly held beliefs or opinions that are simply incompatible with what some of our team members believe. And those beliefs and opinions, of course, can lead to conflict. Now, one that we probably don't see too much in a Toastmaster setting is perceived threats. You know, it's usually not a threatening environment, although I suppose you could make a case that threatening your position of authority might fall in that category. There are some folks who love having that authority, but perceived threats are usually not I would say, a prevalent issue within the Toastmasters environment, because part of what we are is focused on trying to support one another. Powerful emotions, that goes along with the strongly held beliefs, but those can also lead to conflict. And I think one of the most important is failure to communicate. Now, did I miss any on that list there, Phyllis?
No, I don't think so. Power struggles sometimes is a reason for conflict. Someone is upset because they didn't get to be the leader. So power conflicts, maybe.
You know, and I think the one way when you talk about power conflicts, perceived threats to your position or what have you, I think one of the things to focus on is the fact that we want to create a supportive environment and we want to promote leadership. I'm happy when we have a new member in my club, for example, who is interested in becoming a club officer. Too many times it's like pulling teeth to get someone, okay, come on, you can do this, please stand up and become an officer. So I'm really very happy when we have a new member who is interested in club leadership, or even an existing member who maybe has been around for a while, but they haven't stepped up. Now, whoops, let's see here. There we go. There are some barriers. Now, just off the top of your head, what do you think, Phyllis, stops people from moving towards a healthy resolution of conflicts? Any thoughts on that?
Well, they're strongly opinionated. There are a few of our members that feel like their way is the only way. And they don't listen to what others have to say. So it's the communication, listening to what others say and the reasons behind it. The listening skills, I think, is they're not listening to what others are saying. They only know what they think is right. And this is not, conducive for having a great team. Everybody has input. Everybody should relax and listen to what's happening in the meetings.
That's a really great point. And we talked about that a little bit when we were talking about effective communication and active listening. And one of the things that gets in the way of active listening is that inability to focus, that lets your emotions take over. And that also acts as a barrier to conflict resolution. So some of the things I came up with is, one is jumping to conclusion. And that goes back to the listening and not paying attention to what the other person is saying in that situation. We jump to a conclusion about their intentions or about what it is they want before we really know what it is that they're trying to communicate to us. So that's one barrier that I came up with, and it was in the model I was looking at. Judging a problem too quickly. And, I have to say husbands are guilty of this. I've been a husband for quite some time, so I've got a lot of practice in. I'm very aware that one thing husbands do is they judge a problem too quickly. And if your significant other is explaining an issue to you, the tendency, and I think this must be a male trait, is husbands jump in and they want to solve a problem before they really understand what the problem is. And I've learned, there's this great book called Mars versus Venus that talks about differences between men and women. And one of the things that I've learned as a husband is sometimes your significant other isn't looking for a solution to a problem. They just want to talk about it. And that is something that's a learned behavior, by the way. But jumping and judging a problem too quickly leads to maybe intensify the conflict or the miscommunication. So you want to make sure you have all the facts before you're ready to move on. Searching for a single answer, and I think you touched on this, Phyllis, where we think, well, there's only one answer to this problem, and I have that answer. I know what the answer is, so I really don't need to chat with you any further. I don't need to negotiate or anything else. There's only one answer, and it's the one I propose. Often in conflict situations, in problem-solving situations, there are multiple answers that can occur or that can come up and be discussed. And sometimes we limit ourselves. We may select and think there's that one answer and not go on to pursue other potential answers that may be better solutions. And that goes right along with what you were saying in that believing your answer is absolutely the best possible answer. How could anyone come up with a resolution to this problem that's better than my proposal. Have you seen a lot of that? I think we have strong personalities that may exhibit that.
Yeah, once people find their voice, they use it a lot.
Oh, that's really good. We do want people to use their voice, and I think there, at least there used to be, and I'm sure there are in Pathways, paths and projects that deal with conflict and how to resolve them. Either or assumptions are another barrier that we see often in conflict resolution. It's either this or that. Again, you're limiting, restricting the number of potential solutions to, I can only see either this, that we do either this or that. Now, obviously, there may be times when your options are indeed rather narrow and maybe one or two options. But I think the important question here is, don't lock yourself in to a simple either or assumption, but be willing to talk to the party with whom you're having some conflict and reach a win-win situation. We're going to talk about how to overcome some of these issues in a little bit. But just for now, our ultimate goal will be to commit to come to a solution that is a win-win. We don't want people to feel like, well, I lost this battle. That may in some cases be inevitable, but our goal is a win-win solution. And either or assumptions often preclude that. Deciding that this is somebody else's problem. It's not my problem. Don't come talk to me about it. I don't want to hear about it. But it turns out when you're in a leadership position in Toastmasters or in any other organization or in any job, problems that you don't consider yours really are. And that attitude can turn around and actually bite you in the behind if you're not careful, because when problems arise, we can put our head in the sand and ignore them, or we can take some ownership and say, I may have an opportunity to discover a solution to this particular conflict or this problem, and then move on if we can resolve it. Any thoughts on that, Phyllis? Tell me about your negotiating skills. I know you've probably had some of that over the years.
Well, deciding the problem is theirs, not mine. And I immediately thought of when I was the district governor and someone actually called and emailed me multiple times because his club that he had started, the membership voted him out.
Ooh.
And it's like, finally, you have to tell him, I'm the district governor, but I do not interfere with clubs. This was their decision. And after you've said it a number of times, it's like, this is not a problem of the district. And, with all things, as far as I'm concerned, is that gently persuading someone and making them understand that there's nothing that you can do is part of being brought conflict that is not really part of the committee or the job that you are in. But you must persuade people and make them understand what it is that you can do and what it is you cannot do. And I cannot interfere with the running of your club. That was just how that was.
Exactly. And when the club votes you in, that means they can also vote you out. It's an unfortunate situation, but you're right. Part of conflict resolution is recognizing when the solution you have may be the best, although it's not one you're particularly happy with. Yeah. And then another barrier is failing to control your anger. And this is really difficult. When we're emotionally invested in an issue and someone is in opposition, there's a conflict with that issue, it's all too easy for us to get angry about it. So we have to try and step back and control our anger so that that doesn't get in the way. If you're angry, it's difficult to resolve issues. It's difficult to have a rational discussion. It's difficult to appreciate the perspective of other folks that may be involved. So controlling your anger is a biggie.
It is difficult when somebody comes at you screaming. I had this happen to, she was actually a personal friend, and she was screaming at me at a district meeting. And I was just like, wait, we're going to take care of this, please, calm down. It's not the end of the world. There's no reason to get so upset because we're going to handle it. We're going to take care of it.
You've got to diffuse that situation in the best way you can, and assuring the person who's coming at you, that's a very real world type of situation.
It's like, wow, you just kind of, calm down. We're going
time out, take a time out.
Yeah, we're going to take care of this.
And we're going to do it.
Everything worked out just fine, but you can't deal with somebody that's screaming at you. So even if you're the person that's wanting something to be changed, it doesn't pay to go at it with your anger.
Exactly. Very good points. Now, here are some questions that you can ask in that situation. We talked about the fact that we don't always think about the other person's perspective. So we want to first question we want to ask, you don't have to ask these out loud, but ask yourself, what's going on in this person's world right now that's maybe contributing to the conflict? Am I being sensitive to that? Is that a piece of information that will help with that conflict resolution? Maybe external, outside of the Toastmasters or the meeting or whatever, that is causing stress or what have you. But what's going on? What's their perspective? What's important to this team member or to the team at this moment? Sometimes we get all caught up, and as I said earlier, we jump to conclusions, and we don't really understand what's important for whomever we're in conflict with. What is important at this moment that we need to address to help resolve the conflict? So all of these types of questions are focused on the other party, and they're very important to make sure that in our conflict resolution process, we consider their perspective, take into account what's going on with them, and that helps us to really focus on analytics, analyzing the situation, I think. And the question we want to ask ourselves is, am I listening? Remember, we talked about active listening to understand, or am I listening just to defend my position, to press my case? Active listening and effective communication would answer, I do need to listen to understand, make sure I understand their position. And another question, have I clearly communicated my perspective in a way that is conducive to good communications and that is clear? The situation you described, for example, Phyllis, when someone comes at you yelling and screaming, that's not the best way to articulate, present your perspective and your position. Because as you pointed out, it evokes a defensive response. You're immediately sort of have that flight or fight. And many of us want to fight because, we feel like we're being attacked. And that is clearly not conducive to understanding a perspective or to communicating your own perspective. Any thoughts on that? Any of these questions? They seem right on.
I think so, yes. But it's like every one of them can be brought to you without the anger in the voice. Because when they have this anger, this particular case, it disturbed the whole room. We've got 60, 70 people in there. that are upset because of what's going on. And it's not like it couldn't be handled. So, yeah, it's like a little understanding. Listen to understand.
Exactly.
Yeah, communicate. Yeah, it works. Gotta listen.
A few more key questions that you can ask. Is this really something worth fighting over? That's, I've staked out a position here, and it may be something that's really, in the scheme of things, quite trivial. Am I overreacting to this particular issue? And do we really need to fight about this? Maybe not. Maybe the whole conflict is, it's making a mountain out of a molehill, that expression. So that's another question we ask. We need to ask ourselves, is this something that really is worth it? Another question related, can this be negotiated? And usually the answer is yes. In fact, most conflicts are resolved through some sort of negotiation and understanding, particularly when each party is focused on creating a win-win situation. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, what am I really after here? You have to ask yourself this. Do I just want to win an argument because I hate to lose?
There you go. That's me. I hate to lose.
I hate to lose too. But you have to ask yourself, as with your emotions under control, do I really feel like I want a solution, or do I just want to win? There's that self-satisfaction of winning an argument in any situation that sort of boasts our ego. Ha ha ha, I am right. But when you're dealing with building your teams, that kind of attitude, win at any cost, is going to be very, very destructive to your team. And ultimately, they may vote to kick you out of the club. Okay, let's take a moment.
And do not come to the district because of it.
That's right. Don't go and yell at the district director or district governor back in the day. Don't go yell at the district director or the division director or anyone else when the problem may be one that you contributed to, and it's one that the district can't really help you with. Nevertheless, there are some very straightforward strategies for dealing with conflict and resolving conflict. And I don't want to suggest that they're easy. They do take emotional maturity for folks to really implement these strategies. So one, and I think this is the tough one, we tend to get mad at people, not at problems. That means we have difficulty separating the person from the problem. This is all Phyllis's problem. It's all her fault. I'm never going to speak to Phyllis again. And in that scenario, the problem has been wrapped around the person, and you need to separate that. The person is still a good person. Phyllis is still a wonderful human being, but the problem is something separate that we seek to resolve. So anyway, during any conflict in this particular discussion, people need to see themselves working side by side, not attacking each other. I'm not going to attack Phyllis. Phyllis is a good person. She's the same person I've known for many years and really appreciate. It's the problem we need to work on together that is separate from the person. We don't want to attack or blame Phyllis, because again, that's not going to get us anywhere. That's going to lead to an ineffective response, and it's going to create barriers rather than break down barriers. Does that seem right on to you, Phyllis?
It sounds right.
And it's pretty simple. It's simple to say, but it can be difficult to separate the people from the problem. Again, try to understand the other person's point of view. Look at their perspective and appreciate where they're coming from. Another strategy is to focus on the interest of that the individuals have, not the positions they're taking. For example, if we have a issue where we both take strong positions, we're probably not going to move off of those positions. But let's focus on what are our common interests. Our common interest in Toastmasters is to create a supportive environment. So rather than looking at a position that I'm holding and is immovable, let's find those common interests and build from there. Ask, why do you hold that position, Phyllis? Why do you not hold a different position? What is the binding factor, if you will, in that position? I want to explain my interests, and here it's clearly explain your why. Why do I have this position? What can I look at in terms of our common interests that will help us move forward rather than being forever stuck? And then I want to listen without interruption or judgment. We talked about this again in effective communications, and it's just as important in conflict resolution. There's so much overlap. We want to actively listen. We don't want to interrupt and interject judgment at an early point in the discussion, because that's just going to cloud the issue and create barriers. Any thoughts on that, Phyllis?
I would say we also need to talk about the goal. What is their position and what is the goal? Are they willing to change their position to reach that goal, to focus on those interests or goals that
Absolutely.
every club is working toward?
And some other strategies here, generate options. Let's talk about options. You remember we talked earlier about staying focused on one solution as being a barrier. What we want are options that create a win-win scenario. We don't want a I win, you lose. To the extent that we possibly can, let's make it a win-win. Let's brainstorm. Let's look at all possible solutions for the problem, and let's be creative. Let's try to resolve the conflict so that both sides feel satisfied, that it wasn't a argument that went on forever or that created that lose-win situation, because in reality, both lose. You want to focus on win-win, because that is going to strengthen those relationships. It will also foster respect and improve trust. As a leader, when you take this position in any conflict situation and you come out with a win-win solution, it's going to be the betterment for everyone, and especially the club and the people involved. One more strategy, and I think we're going to get close to wrapping up here, is to use objective criteria. Again, don't be, it's like, when you're in school, particularly grade school, name calling and blaming and attacking someone else. Let's not do that. What is the objective criteria we can use? When our interests are opposed, using objective criteria that is clearly observable and verifiable helps us look at it in a less biased way. And then we have to agree that the criteria is in fact objective and that it is applicable to this particular situation. I think that covers everything we wanted to talk about today. I did want to get to this point. This is our resources page, so people can either take a picture of this if they're listening in, or it will be on our recording. But here are some resources. Many of these come from Toastmasters, the magazine. So you can look them up, particularly the second reference there, a guide to civil social communications, speaking up in tough situations. So you can look back into like the October 2015 or the June 2017 Toastmasters magazine and find what you need. I think that pretty much is it. We are right at 6:29. Do you have any concluding thoughts here on our topic today on conflict resolution that you'd like to get out to our listeners and viewers?
I would say do your best to stop it before it happens. Be sure that everybody knows what the project is, what the end results will be, what each member is to handle, and frequency of meetings. And also be open. Do not be talking with one member of your team. If there's something to be discussed, send it out to everyone. Try and
Absolutely.
stop it before it starts.
Exactly. And I think, that's very good advice. If you're open and transparent in your leadership style, that will help you because people will start to trust you. And I think all of the tools and tips that we've offered today are focused on maintaining the strength of the club, the strength of Toastmasters through conflict resolution. Conflict may be inevitable because we're all human, I guess, but it does not necessarily need to be destructive. It can be a growth experience, and hopefully we come out on the other side stronger as individuals and stronger as a club.
It can be discussion, not conflict.
Exactly. Thank you. Well, I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners. I know that listeners today, it must range in the millions. I'm just so sure of that. I know Jennifer's with us. I appreciate her comment. She said she gives us applause. Thank you, Jennifer. Few announcements. If you are interested in being a guest on Wake Up with Toastmasters, or if you have any questions about our program, please send me an email at d115cgd@gmail.com. Coming up this Saturday, I want to remind those of you who are on the District Executive Committee that we have a meeting. I think that starts at 9 a.m. and that will be an online meeting. On February 12th, we will have our educational enrichment night. The classes are described in the newsletter. So if you don't have access to a newsletter, you can always go to our website, the d115tm.org, and there's a tab for the newsletter. You can look at the most current version and it'll give you all the classes. And then finally, game night is on the last Saturday of the month. Also in the newsletter, you'll find a link to register for that. It's just a fun, casual get together to play games. So hopefully that'll give you plenty to do for the month. Did I leave anything out, Phyllis?
Got to put a plug in for Club Coach. We need
Absolutely.
coaches.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Phyllis. Yes, we do still need some club coaches. So if you're interested in helping another club with their growth and development, please get in touch with me or Phyllis, and we will put you in the training, and we will assign a club for you to basically mentor and assist in their journey. Thank you for joining everyone today. We appreciate it. We're going to sign off, and we will see you again on Tuesday. Bye, everyone.
Bye.